What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So over the weekend, a bunch of games just randomly leaked out online, one being a collection from the old Game Boy Advance days on the ratings board, and then a couple of others leaking out from the Epic Games Store database. So we're going to go over all of those here today. Also, E3 came and went, and there was never any Switch Pro announced as people were expecting leading up to E3. Well, a couple people actually caught up with Doug Bowser, and he gave a bit of a response to the question around Nintendo and new hardware. Oh, and we did get our first review around Mario Golf, so that means we get to play Did It Score Better than Sonic Forces? Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and hit the little notification bell down there so you can keep up to date with all the uploads on the channel. And we're going to start today with a big sale at Target for first-party physical Nintendo Switch games. I like to just let you guys know whenever these kind of games go on sale because it's not typical for some of Nintendo's bigger games to go on sale, especially not to this extent where we're seeing some of them marked down 50%. We'll actually head over here to Target where we can see they have their deal days. And the biggest reason I'm letting you guys know now is because it looks like it ends tomorrow, but you can see the two big ones they have at the top. We have Paper Mario and Pikmin 3 Deluxe, both of which going for $30. So you can actually pick both of those up for the price of a normal full price Nintendo game in general at $60. And they also have a few others on sale like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at $48, Mario Odyssey at $40, and if you really wanted a physical copy of Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, it's actually sitting at $15. So that's pretty good overall. And I did also notice that Luigi's Mansion 3, which is an awesome game to play through, is sitting at $40. And usually we'll talk about these Nintendo sales and they're all digital. So I know people like to at least build up some of their collection in their Switch library. This is a good chance to do that with some pretty good physical first-party titles from Nintendo that are up to half off. Also, we do have EA Play coming up here at the end of July, and it sounds like it might shape up to be a pretty good showing overall, but there is one thing that's come up from Jeff Grubb around an older franchise that could be getting a bit of a revival here at the end of July. Let's head over here. This reported by VGC. Again, according to Jeff Grubb, EA is reportedly planning to announce a new game based on an established IP at its EA Play Live event next month. This, according to Jeff Grubb, stated that EA's Motive Studio was working on an established IP revival, saying, "I think you'll be happy. We're going to see it if we're not dead first." So obviously a lot of people are thinking, oh, is that Dead Space? And that'd be pretty cool if we got a new Dead Space game, but this is EA, so I'm not expecting them to go too far with Dead Space. But if we want to kind of get off the wall, we could come up with a couple of other options here. I mean, Fight Night would be kind of cool to see that come back. Def Jam, I think that's EA. They could do that, I guess. I'm sure the licensing around both of those would be a whole thing. So how about we go a bit off the wall and say Road Rash? I feel like people would still have fun driving around, hitting each other with clubs on motorcycles. Oh, and a big no-show at Nintendo's Direct for E3 was certainly Bayonetta 3. A lot of people were wondering, hey, where's Bayonetta? Like, it feels like we've known about this game for a long time. In fact, it was the first year of the Switch that it was announced alongside of the Bayonetta 1 and 2 collection, but we haven't seen anything else outside of basically the logo for the game. Well, Nintendo did at least give us an update on the game itself during a Treehouse Live. We can actually head over here. Nintendo Everything had the quote. This was from Bill Trinan saying, "We like to show things when we're ready to show them, and certainly we like to show things when the developers are ready to show them. We didn't have it here at E3, but stay tuned." Now, he had gone on further to say it still exists, which, okay, well, that's good. And then also saying, "I will even go one further and say not only does it exist, but it's progressing well." So obviously you can understand why people are concerned about this game. It's been radio silence since its initial reveal, and we just saw Platinum show up with Babylon's Fall. So yes, people are gonna be like, Bayonetta 3 is not gonna show up like that situation. And I assume it won't, because I don't think Bayonetta 3 is gonna show up all of a sudden as a live service game. But yeah, people are starting to wonder if everything's all right with Bayonetta 3. From what Nintendo and even Kamiya are saying, it's fine, but I guess we'll see when they're ready to show it, hopefully next year, because I feel like every time we do these predictions videos for Nintendo Directs, we're always like, oh, it's finally time to see Bayonetta 3, and then it's not there. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with all these game leaks that just kind of happened over the weekend. And we're going to start with the one that I'm probably the most excited for, and that is the Castlevania Advance Collection. So kind of think about that for a second. Castlevania Advance Collection, could that be all of the awesome Castlevania games that were on the Game Boy Advance brought up to current platforms in the form of a collection. Well, it's Konami, and they've kind of been doing that recently with a couple of collections, especially one with some of the older Castlevania games, so I think it's very possible, and it looks like it's actually shown up on a ratings board that you can see here. It's the Castlevania Advanced Collection with a classification date of June 18th. So this is very recent, over the weekend actually, and it has M2 listed as the developer, and that would make sense because they did the other Castlevania collection. M2 is very talented overall in bringing some of these older games up to current platforms, and the idea here, I guess, would be, hey, we're going to take Castlevania Circle of the Moon, that came out in 2001, Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, that came out in 2002, and Castlevania Aria of Sorrow from 2003, throw them into a collection, probably upscale them, do all kinds of things that look good on like a 4K set with the PlayStation and Xbox, or on even a smaller screen, 720p screen for the Switch, or 1080 when that's docked, and just have them readily available. And I think this is an awesome idea, and I'm curious how they're going to go about this. Will this be a full price title? Because these games are great and they're still very valuable online to have it physically. I think Castlevania, Aria of Sorrow, I believe, is over $100 right now on eBay just for the Game Boy Advance cartridge. And really looking at this, and you may notice that, wow, we got 3 really good Metroidvania, Castlevania style games come out in that span of time. And yes, the Game Boy Advance Castlevanias were awesome, and that was a really good time to be a Castlevania fan, because we of course had Symphony of the Night years prior, but then all of a sudden the Game Boy Advance shows up. That is a great landing spot for a lot of those kind of Castlevania games, and they were just firing them off left and right. Super high quality Castlevania games, and I really hope this is set for reveal soon and that it is coming out this year, because I would be picking this up immediately. But we've seen the response for 2D games right now with Metroid Dread, so if Konami shows up with 3 valuable Castlevania games that are 2D and they slap a full price on it, I am curious how people would feel about that. I mean, I would pick it up because these games are very, very good, and I feel like there are a lot of people who have not played any of them, because they came out in early 2000s, and obviously the younger generations kind of come in now with like the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, now up to the Series X and the PS5 and the Switch. So it would be new experiences, and I have to say, those 3 Castlevania games combined would probably be worth the $60 in the amount of playtime and enjoyment you can get out of them. Now, on top of the Castlevania Advance Collection, we had a couple of other games that were found in the Epic Game Store's database, and I would say one of these is expected by now, considering it does look like Final Fantasy VII Remake is eventually going to go to other platforms. But you can see this screenshot here that was pulled out of the database showing Final Fantasy VII Remake. And what's funny about this is it appeared to have had a code name attached to it, that being Pineapple. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake found in the Epic Game Store database. And then on top of that, this one, maybe a bit more surprising, Alan Wake Remastered. Now, we have seen Remedy do things with Alan Wake and Control with the latest expansion. That was pretty cool to see that. So the idea of Alan Wake Remastered showing up on PC and I guess on consoles as well would be really cool, because hey, who knows what the future, I guess, would hold for Alan Wake here going forward with, I guess, a brand new one as well down the road. Have the remastered come out so more and more people can try it out and kind of get into that universe. But that's exciting stuff. And then Final Fantasy VII Remake, again, expected, right? Like, most of us are just waiting at this point for it to show up on Xbox, maybe even get dropped right in the Game Pass with how Microsoft's throwing money around right now, and then show up on PC, and you can, of course, do all the bells and whistles, maybe ultra-wide support, super high frame rates, high resolutions, and all that. The game already looks really good with, like, the PS5 through Integrate, and then obviously have it show up on a platform at the PC where you can really push things with some nice video cards, and I think that game could look amazing. So at this point, we're just kind of waiting for Final Fantasy VII Remake to get announced. The fact, though, that it is in the Epic Game Store's database is concerning some people, that maybe a deal was struck and it's just going to be on the Epic Game Store, but I feel like we've seen that time and time again now for all these different third-party games where Epic will throw some money around to get some sort of timed exclusivity around it. Either way, though, it's exciting to see Alan Wake Remastered, certainly, and Final Fantasy VII Remake, I guess, showing up here anytime. We'll just have to keep an eye out for him. Next up, let's talk about that fabled Nintendo Switch Pro and Doug Bowser, who's the head of Nintendo of America. Now, we know Bloomberg put out an entire report saying that the announcement was imminent, possibly even ahead of E3, but E3 came and went and there was never an announcement. Now, when we were leading up to E3 and we got within a week of that event happening, I pretty much said, yeah, it's not going to get announced now. They're certainly not going to announce it at E3 and potentially overshadow a lot of the software that they're going to be showing there. And, well, looks like I was right. No Switch Pro at E3, so we'll see if Bloomberg was correct on this one as we go through the summer, because they seem to believe that this system is going into production in July, and we see what happens when these systems go into production. They leak out online, at least pictures do, of these different systems. I mean, we had the Switch Lite leak out, which at the time we thought of as the Switch Mini, and we even saw the PS5 end up online with several pictures showing the shell and even someone just standing there holding it. So if it does go into production, I would expect an announcement around that time. But a couple of people did catch up with Doug Bowser at the Washington Post, and they asked about Nintendo and new hardware, especially after all of these reports were starting to come out, specifically from Bloomberg, and this is what he had to say. We are always looking at technology and how technology can enhance gameplay experiences. It's not technology for technology's sake, it's how specifically can technology enhance a gameplay experience, and then where do you apply that technology? Do you want to apply it on current existing hardware or platforms? Or do you want to wait for the next platform? And then what's the right gameplay experience with that? There's a host of factors that goes into it, and it's something we're always looking at. So immediately you can tell this is just PR speak, marketing speak from Doug Bowser and Nintendo of America. Their job mostly is to take what Nintendo headquarters comes up with in Japan and just try to relay it to the American audience the best that they can. There's the marketing firm mostly, but you can kind of see he's not exactly denying. He's not like, well, nope, we're not doing any hardware. We're just focusing on the software this year, and that's it. Nintendo did say that like a year ago, and they have not been as straightforward this time, and that's kind of why it's leaving the door open for people to believe that there is some sort of Switch revision coming up here this year, I guess over the summer for an announcement. But like I said, we didn't see it ahead of E3 when a lot of reports were pushing for that, but I guess we still have the entire summer going into the holiday. Look, if it's not announced, I would say by like August, yeah, it's probably not happening. But then if we get into 2022, I mean, at that point, you might as well just roll into the next gen hardware conversation, because we'd be getting kind of close to like the back quarter of the Switch's life, and that's kind of what conversation shifts to, is what's next for Nintendo after the Switch, right? So we'll see what happens here, but unfortunately this didn't really give us massive insight other than Nintendo's making hardware and they're trying to figure out how to take their gameplay and I guess kind of mold it around that hardware. So if it's 4K and higher frame rates, I guess that's just making the games run better, which, hey, some of their games, yeah, they could probably use that. I'm looking at things like Age of Calamity as an example. So maybe that is enough for Nintendo to say, you know what, maybe we could use this beefed up hardware to get us over the next 3 to 4 years, and then we'll start talking about the next generation system. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Mario Golf Super Rush. It's out this Friday, and I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy kind of just the overall arcade nature of these different Mario sports games, and while it's not Mario Strikers, Mario Golf is still a good time, and it's been with us since the Nintendo 64, so I always check them out whenever they have a new one. But we did get our first review for Mario Golf Super Rush, which means we get to play, did it score better than Sonic Forces with Famitsu? Remember, Sonic Forces got a 35 out of 40, so it's a pretty good bar overall to try to get past. So let's head over to the review scores here and we'll see what the judges gave it. Starting with reviewer 1 giving it an 8, reviewer 2 giving it an 8, reviewer 3 giving it an 8, and then reviewer 4 giving it a 9, giving Mario Golf Super Rush a total of 33 out of 40. That's right, it is 2 points lower than Sonic Forces. I mean, I guess I'll check it out, you know, it's no rush. Now, this the way I look at it is Mario Golf games, or just sports games in general, I'm sure they're a little harder to judge overall or put a review score on, because they're not obviously these massive story-driven, you know, kind of games, but they did point out that Speed Golf is a lot of fun, which is great, and the story mode is actually surprisingly fleshed out with a lot of stuff to do, and of course you do build up your Mii character through RPG elements, and that was one of the things I was looking forward to because I did enjoy that on things like the Game Boy, so I'll be picking this one up here, but all in all, they said it was an enjoyable, fun experience, and if you're a fan of Mario Golf through the last, several iterations of it, you're gonna have a great time here with Mario Golf Super Rush, and Speed Golf came up in every one of these reviews pretty much as just being an overall fun time with your friends. So seems like a pretty cool feature to have in there if you have some people around you can play with. So looking forward to this one this Friday. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday where I asked, have you played any of the Game Boy Advanced Castlevania games? And 72% said no, I never had a chance to play any of them. I gotta stop doing these polls because they're starting to make me feel old. I know you're looking like 18 years ago or something for the last Game Boy Advance Castlevania game released, I believe. So yeah, that's a while ago. And yeah, we have, you know, newer gamers coming into the space here with like the Xbox 360 and the PS3 or the Xbox One and the PS4. So there's a lot of people who missed out on these games. So that is one of the reasons I do like these collections coming back up so they can try these different games out for the first time. I mean, if you've never played any of those Castlevania games from the Game Boy Advance and this collection gets introduced, there is an overwhelming amount of value there. So I completely recommend it, especially if you're a fan of maybe the different 2D games out now, like Ori, for example. You certainly want to check out this Castlevania Advance collection, provided it's what we all assume that it is, but I guess it's Konami, so you never know. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Arjun saying, when I saw the first gameplay footage of Metroid Dread, my first impression was that it could use some more polish and visually didn't look the most impressive considering the hardware it is running on, so I get where people are coming from in regards to the $6 price tag. However, that first impression was also by watching a streamer streaming the Nintendo E3 Direct, so naturally, there is a big drop in visual quality when you watch it that way. I also noticed that people are a lot less unforgiving with the price tag of 2D games when they use a 2.5D realistic to semi-realistic visual design over a 2.5D or 2D highly stylized design. These days, people hold 3D style graphics to a much higher standard than they do with flat 2D graphics like pixel art. If developers and publishers want to sell 2D/2.5D games at a full price without a lot of people questioning the price tag for its visuals, then going for highly stylized visuals may be the way to go. And I certainly get where you're coming from here because let's face it, first impressions are made on the graphics that are showcased right away in any of these games. And that's probably why we're seeing more and more cinematic style trailers, like now more than ever, is because there is such an expectation around AAA graphics. Even if you show something that's a work in progress, people might just kind of tune out if it doesn't look up to like what their expectations are for a big budget title. But looking at like Metroid Dread, it's clear they wanted 60 frames per second. They wanted to use 3D models for the cutscenes and all of this. So I'm sure the visuals had to be scaled back a bit in that regard. But really looking at the idea of graphics make the price, there are times where that backfires on us. I mean, look at Anthem. That's like one of the best examples of a game that looked phenomenal when they showed it. We were all kind of on board like, wow, this game looks really good. And it's from BioWare. And then the game comes out, still looks great. But then we're playing it and we're like, oh, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be. And then we get back to the point where we're like, yeah, it's a visual showcase, but as a game, it's just not that fun. And that's really what it comes back to, right? Like Metroid Dread may not look the best overall in the AAA space, but it could be a ton of fun, and that's really what it comes down to for games. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's all these games kind of leaking out over the weekend, Castlevania Advance Collection or Final Fantasy VII Remake on PC along with Alan Wake Remastered. And then what about Nintendo and Doug Bowser talking about new Switch hardware, new Nintendo hardware, not outright denying it, but do you think the Switch Pro dream is dead for 2021? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.